opinions of that game?
Jesus. Yeah. Wow. Everyone thought the Alliance will have it, or at least I did. Froggen, star player, he was fat, and all they had to do is just not screw up, and they did. So
Where do you
they
think
were
where do you think
they,
specifically they messed up?
in the playstyle. Like there were some kind of weird builds from Taps as well, and they had a zillion. So you either go for full damage and you just dive in, kill someone, and then you get revived from zillion, which should happen most of the times, or you go for the build that Taps did, and then you just siege towers. And every time you have a stacked shield from the BT, you just hit the towers. That's what we saw from Njin when they had like Lulu shielding the Tristana 24/7 and she was just hitting the towers. That's what uh, Alliance had to do, but they didn't do it and they just get roll stomped by Njin after giving 2 kills to Tristana.
I love that you brought up play styles because this is something I really wanted to talk about with you guys today, especially because you guys can really go in depth with it. You have a lot of reputation with EU. Correct me if you think I'm wrong, but from watching Alliance, especially in kind of the group stage today, that was an amazing Twisted Fate performance from Froggen. I feel like Alliance is much more almost a skirmish-based team. Like, because Froggen is such their strong pillar, they find a lot of success when it's like those 3v3s or the 4v4s or the 2v2s when he's involved. But if it's that full 5v5, Alliance seems to kind of fall behind other teams, that are as superior or even a little bit more like some of the higher level Korean teams. Would you guys agree with that assessment?
Yeah, I did.
Yeah, I think that usually we see Wicked put on pretty split push champions if he's not playing like Lulu or something for the team fight. So, with Wicked split pushing, then they can have these skirmishes. And Froggen's such a strong player by himself that in these small team fights that they can have, if you've got one really strong player, then they can carry it a lot harder than if you were having a full 5v5 and you need, all 10 people in the team fight.
So, do you think this was just an issue that Alliance wasn't able to implement their skirmishes for as long as they needed to against Njin White Shield, or was this that Njin White Shield was just able to group and force, better skirmishes or more like 4v5 number mismatch opportunities?
I actually think that the biggest problem was what Alliance had to do basically is continue their snowball what they had early, but the problem was Shook basically. I don't want to go into specifics and blame Shook for like all of the Alliance games like everyone has been, but he really isn't putting any pressure compared to any of the other junglers that we see, and that wasn't the biggest problem in this game. However, when it comes to skirmishes, if we take for example the first one, well, one of the first ones where we had the 2v2 on bot lane with Reckles and Nif engage Nif. Right, what am I on about? I'm talking about Fnatic. Where we had Tabs and Nif engage. No, I'm on about a different game. I'm totally messing up. Okay.
Yellowstone.
I have these notes.
We're Alliance.
I'm looking at the wrong one.
She's got like all the names written down.
I do. I have everyone written down, even though I'm a European ambassador of sorts. What I wanted to say was Wicked messed up a lot of his teleports that game. He won his lane as well, though. That's the problem. We see this problem a lot with Wicked. He's really inconsistent. He'll either win his lane with the help of Shook, of course, usually because Froggen snowball in mid, or we'll see these really bad teleports come out of him, and I've seen that also with Soaz as well as Wicked. European top laners don't seem to be able to understand when it's best to teleport into these fights and skirmishes, like what we see from Dyrus or what we see from like any of the Chinese or Korean top laners. And I think that's a pretty big problem with Alliance not being able to rely on their top laner and jungler for what they need to commit to do.
Do you think, and just kind of throwing it back while we're on this tangent, do you think that that's something specific to the European meta? Because, I mean, if we think back to even Freddy, like Freddy had an amazing performance, though, in the other side of group stage, was really on point with his teleports. Is this a majority, though? Is Freddy, like the individual that stands out, the outlier?
The difference between Freddy and the rest of the European top laners is Freddy tends to be a lot more consistent. He wins his lane a lot of the time for a top laner. Another thing that I realized about Freddy in this, like, it's only been group stages, you can't really say that much, but what I realized about Freddy compared to Soaz and Wicked is that he seems to have adapted to more of what the East have picked up for top lane, you know, like all of the new champion pools that we've seen, all the new meta coming out. But for people like Soaz and Wicked, they tend to still play things that we've seen a lot back in like patch 4.10, 4.11. So you've got like Lulus. We saw the Kale come out of Soaz, come out of Wicked, which we haven't seen in a long time. I think
so you're
that
comparing the difference between like the Mundo Swain versus the Kale Lulu.
Yeah, I think that Freddie picks a lot more relevant champions, and that makes a big difference.
So this now comes down to they're going to get another shot at Njin White Shield. Do you think that Alliance will be able to recognize these mistakes and correct them? Because from Alliance's day yesterday, you know, the poor performance on Xerath, it seemed like a switch had been flipped. Like, yes, we need to get more involved. We need to be more aggressive. Froggen immediately picks up Twisted Fate. It looked like a much stronger performance. Will they be able to carry this through and to keep an adaptation?
I think that depends if Alliance can get their Warden down. For example, when they were winning in the Alliance versus Njin White Shield game, they started losing once their vision started slacking. So you had Gorilla landing the hooks because they had no vision on Gorilla, and Njin White Shield had deeper wards than Alliance had, despite the fact that they were behind.
Well, I actually got surprised, like both days. I got surprised by decision making of both teams. Like I was casting the games, and since I already knew that Alliance has a really strong skirmishes, we were talking about it a bit earlier. Then I was telling to myself and to Njin that if they are gonna go 2v2 mid lane, they can FF the game because they will never win. And then I got surprised because they were constantly trying to force these skirmishes in mid lane, and then Froskurinn got fed from it. And then, surprisingly enough, Alliance surprised me again with their poor decision making. So both teams were slacking today pretty hard, even though the game looked pretty clear from Njin White Shield after the first mistake. But yeah, it was back and forth, and I got surprised. I didn't really expect such mistakes from Njin White Shield when they should know what skirmishes they should take, and they basically took the worst skirmishes they can ever do, and they almost lost the game on it. But yeah,
So,
Alliance gave it back then.
I want to kind of stay on Njin White Shield before we switch over to Fnatic Samsung Blue. Their game against Cloud9. So it's really curious because I feel like, again, going back to playstyles, there's this mentality of, you know, a lot of people, you know, they see one game and they're instantly like, oh, you know, Samsung Blue is going to perform like Ozone again, or these outlandish things. Like, Njin White Shield versus Cloud9 was very much more definitively in Njin White Shield's favor. Njin White Shield versus Alliance, very close game. That said, the Cloud9 versus Alliance, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's almost this logic that, you know, Samsung White loses to Blue, Blue loses to Fnatic, Fnatic loses to LFQ, so...
Earlier, actually.
Exactly. So TSM's gonna win Worlds because they beat Fnatic. But and then, I mean, is this a like if you had to identify the playstyle, like we talked about it a bit with Fnatic, like what do you think is the key difference in the playstyle of Cloud9 versus the Njin White Shield matchup that helped them so much better? Or was this not a playstyle? Was this just Njin playing their same game but just better? Pause.
I don't know who you were talking to. I wasn't sure.
Either one.
Freeze.
I just throw it out and hope someone catches it. Like
Well,
some of these games.
I get some intruder in my room, so I had to tell him to go away. And I didn't really pay attention. Sorry.
So it's all on you, Kikuz.
Yeah, I just give it to you.
Just what's Cloud9's playstyle?
I think that Cloud9 did better against Njin White Shield because they control the early game a lot better than Alliance can, and I think that's because they've got a much better jungler. Sorry, Shook.
Wow.
That's
So you think
Wow,
Cloud9 innately should have a better advantage against Njin because of Meteos's pressure? Like you're saying that the matchup that really wins the games for Njin White Shield is going to be where Watch is going to be, and because Meteos is...
It's not even just that. Like Alliance haven't been performing on the same level that they usually perform. This is not the Alliance that we see in EULCS. This is not the bot lane. I mean, if you look at Tabs and Nif, they're like a completely different bot lane to what we're used to seeing. So that's like, I think that's probably the biggest thing. I don't know if it's just nerves getting to them or whatever, but that's what it looks like.
And that also seems to be kind of the reoccurring theme. It's almost like just flip a coin, like literally what they did on the desk of who's going to show up. I mean, we had a completely different Fnatic between the Samsung Blue game and the OMG game, as well as a completely different OMG from day 1 to day 2. But let's go to Fnatic and Samsung Blue, because obviously, like, that's the big matchup. This was the #1 seed for Korea. This is like the big hype, and Fnatic, I mean, kind of manhandled them. Can we talk about Reckless? He had about 100 CS on Deft. And this is supposed to be the...
He had 280 CS at 25 minutes, while Steph had 190. I think that was the exact numbers that I remember.
And this is supposed to be the really passive, you know, farms out, comes out, plays the Lucian, and just kind of destroys. I mean, was this all on the bot lane? Do you, like, what about this Fnatic that didn't we see in the OMG game? Like, what happened there?
They were prepared. It seemed like Fnatic got all the preparation into that game, and they wanted to make an upset for Samsung Blue. And Samsung Blue was under big pressure from a community, and as well, like the fight between Reckless and Deft, you know, it was pretty hyped. So all the team members of Samsung Blue were pretty stressed, and I could have told it that they're choking and tilting pretty hard. And yeah, like Dade, he was baited to pick a first pick Z, and then he caught every single charm from Peke. I know Peke is like pretty hot, you know, but to catch every charm from him, that's too much. And Deft the same, like Deft caught every single charm from Peke. I don't know if they weren't prepared for the Spanish overall there, or I don't know. It was so weird. Like it looked like complete bronze games, you know, like I can aim the charm whatever I want and I will always hit. That was what pretty much happened to the game.
Now that we've kind of had, you know, a decent sized sample pool since it's been 2 days of all of the 80 carries, and this of course is going to go more to Freeze because he is an 80 carry. Like, what do you think? Like, where do you think everyone's matching up? Do you think that Deft, Imp, and Name are living up to the reputation? Do you think Reckless and Tabs are living up to... Because it's curious, NA for a long time had a reputation of having, like, the best 80 carries, primarily because, like, Double Lift was there or something, and then kind of in the night, EU started to get all of these powerhouse 80 carries, but the perception, I feel like, never changed. Like, EU was always known for the mid laners, and of course, like, Bjergsen starts to shift over, Froskurinn and Xpeke stay, and then you have, like, Reckless and Tabs rising up. I mean... Where would you rate everyone? How did they look?
Well, as an AD carry, it's pretty hard to outshine good mid laners, since the mid laners, they have a bigger power spikes earlier in the game. So if you compare something like Tristana and then Ahri in the mid game, then of course there's going to be the star player, whoever plays the Ahri. If he's good enough to play it well, then he will make plays, and Tristana will just either collect kills or wait till something happens. So it's pretty hard to like outshine the mid laners right now, since EU has a really good mid laners, even though we have a really good ADs as well. It's just the meta is different. Like, we don't play passively enough to only wait till our AD carries are strong enough, then one player wins the game alone. You know, we play aggressively all the time, most of the time. So the mid laners have the most impact with junglers, and it's pretty. You can see it pretty clearly on the games as well. So, and yeah, the only one living up to my expectation is Reckless. Like,
I've never heard the term aggressive and EU used in the same. Unless Millennium's in the game, then it's just kind of like a toss-up. You really think that EU, like, you're describing them as aggressive? Like, what about them to you is describing them as aggressive, as like from a player's perspective? Is it the pressure that they're putting and it's not necessarily translating to kills, or?
They have like control aggression. Every time they know that they can fight for a blue buff, they force it. And at these points, when you want to fight for Drakes, blue buffs, objectives early in the game or mid game, then AD carry doesn't do that much. Only if you have Lucian or Corki, then the AD carries are pretty strong at that point. But normally we play like most of the times Tristanas and Kog'Maws, and then it's pretty hard to like do some shiny plays. You know, you don't have spells to jump in 5 people, kill 1, and then jump away. So in that control aggression we do, like you can see it on Alliance, they will never do something crazy. They only do it when they are sure that it will work for them. So if they are sure that hey, there's a dragon and it will go for us, we're just gonna take it. If not, then they don't even try to force it, they just farm. So in a way, we're not aggressive, but yeah, we just have to control the aggression. We're not Chinese teams, you know, like Chinese teams run around all the map and then they kill each other and something happens 24/7. So we're not Chinese, you know. That's completely different level of aggression. But I would
No,
say we still
I
have
think
like
what you're just trying to say is that they go aggressive, but they wait until, you know, it's go time to do so,
yeah.
whereas opposed to like LMQ or Chinese style, it's always fighting. Kikuz, do you have anything to add or
Yeah.
adjust?
If we go based off what Freeze said in terms of the aggression, when they know it's safe to go, then we can assume that the problem that the Europeans are having in these games is that they're not wardened, so that they don't know when they can go aggressive, and then when they do go aggressive, it's a really bad idea. It's really bad for them. That's just, like, based off what Freeze just said there. That's exactly what the problem will have been, because like we were saying, like, Alliance had the advantage and they could easily snowball off it. Like, I'm sure most other teams could outside of Europe. Maybe even SK could have done it better than them, but they just don't have the vision to go with it. And if you're playing against people like Thresh and stuff, you need it or you're going to get caught, and you're not going to know when you need to actually like go in, when you need to use this aggression, because
No.
it's not like they try
That's-
to pick kills or anything like that, unless you're Fnatic.
No, I think that's a really solid point. So going back to Fnatic versus Samsung Blue, because Fnatic won, what does that mean? Like, what does this even mean in the context of group stage? In the context of like the world competition, no one expected this.
Well, it's pretty messed up if you ask me. Like everyone wins versus everyone. I still had like some expectation that there's gonna be one-sided matches, but today it just only Kaboom was the one-sided match, you know. So, and then I didn't really expect those winners. Like, if someone would ask my prediction, I would completely predict something else, and that's how crazy it is, or it was at least today.
What was your prediction on the OMG Fnatic matchup, especially following their performance against Blue?
I was thinking that Fnatic will win, but yeah, again,
Me
uh,
too.
I was mistaken.
B3.
Yeah.
I thought Fnatic for sure was gonna have that. I think the only
Like,
other
the game was perfect, you know, like the game versus Blue, they completely stumped them. They were so prepared. Like they did everything wrong. I mean, everything right, not wrong. And when I saw that game, I just thought, oh my God, this is the Fnatic we've been waiting for. This is the Fnatic that's been boot camping for 1 month, and now we have to just see what they do and if they get more than semis in the Worlds. And then OMG comes and they're a completely different team as well than we saw yesterday. They come with aggression and they are not fearless. Are like with fear. They don't like. They're not scared to do anything crazy. Like if there's a 50-50 chance that they will win it, they will go for it and they will surprise the enemy. So they will have higher chance than 50-50.
So I want to kind of talk a little bit of a breakdown as far as like champion picks and bans. When I was talking to Alex and Nuke Duck yesterday, I asked them like straight up if they thought that the game could be determined in picks and bans, because I kept talking about, you know, strong draft phase versus weak draft phase, and there's been a lot of overlapping champions throughout the world stages so far. Do you guys agree or think that, or you could disagree, that games have been decided in pick and ban phase? Because it's kind of like a really controversial thing to say, that to decide the game, this team lost, this team won, you know, before they're even on the Rift.
Well, I agree with the decision. It's like 40% is just preparation for the games, and if you completely outpick the enemy, then you have such a high chances to win. It's like since the difference.
Sorry.
Oh wow. Yeah. Like you can even see Kabum, you know, like the difference in the laning phase is not big at all. Like even the players like Kabum can stand up among the best, and they can play 10 minutes of the game without dying or going even or even getting ahead sometimes. So if you get a good pick, the skill difference between players are so low that the pick depends so much. Like if you counter pick someone, the skill difference between you and the enemy will be the same, but the champion and the kit, overall kit, you can do something with it against the champion, then it's just completely different, and you can storm the lane just based on the support or like on the champion you picked.
Kikuz, anything to add to that?
Pick and ban phases Well, we saw today Nationwide Shield winning, messing up their messing up their ban phase by not banning someone fast enough. We actually had that confirmed that they did try to ban, but they just didn't because they ran out of time. So that wasn't actually like something that was meant to happen. But yeah, I agree that a lot of it is to do with preparation for the games and knowing what you're going to be playing against, the enemy's play style, how you can play against that. So I would say that's a really important part.
So the other kind of big, I guess, overarching like meta thing that I wanted to talk about, not just picks and ban phase, and this hasn't really been mentioned on the desk a lot. It's the overwhelming dominance of blue side versus purple side right now in the games. So I have the numbers for you guys, but I wanted to kind of ask you, like, why do you think blue side is so dominant?
Straight up Baron vision.
You just think it's completely on Baron just because the power of Baron and that it's a team fight meta and putting them in that, AoE in close space and then having the power of that buff?
If
you don't think it has anything to do with pick ban?
Nah, it does, of course, but if you're on the blue side and you're ahead and you get the vision on the Baron, the other team has such a problem to even contest the Baron or even try to, like, every time they have to ward the Baron, because it's harder to ward, then they can always get caught. And you have to find those little ways where you can get caught. And that's pretty hard for the team when the enemy team is ahead and they have all the vision they need. And it's impossible to come back from that if the enemy team doesn't do mistake and they just bait the Nashor all the time and slow push the waves on bot lane. And yeah, that's pretty much impossible to come up. So if you're ahead on blue side, you're pretty much in a good way to win the game.
Okay.
Like, even if you're not ahead on blue side, though, like, it's not even just warding Baron. It's like you can ward near Baron and kind of see where everyone is. You can't do that anywhere near as well on purple side.
Yeah, and the pick and ban fence, like, if you're a first pick, then the enemy has to pick Zillin. I mean, has to ban Zillin, Alistar, and so on. Most of the times they're forced to ban 2 champions without having a choice of choosing the bans. They just have to ban the Zillion and Alistar because it's such a strong pick right now. So the first pick side they can choose 3 different bans, but the purple side can only choose 1 most of the times.
Nope,
so that's a big factor as well.
I think we wanted to keep this really brief. I know that you're very busy, Freeze. Is there anything else? Because, I mean, the only other games was really the Alliance versus Kaboom, incredibly one-sided. Samsung Blue versus LMQ. I mean, did you guys want to go into Samsung Blue versus LMQ? I tried to keep it more EU geared just because you guys have more experience there. Is there any other, like, big talking points or something that you noticed?
There's not really that much to say about that game. That was a pretty straightforward game.
Let's do predictions. Who are your 2 to make it out of this? Because, I mean, it's so hard. Like, again, it's like flipping a coin. But if you had to pick someone to make it out of Group C, who would it be?
I will think about it. I will hand it over for a while.
He just threw you under the bus. C is going to be Samsung Blue, OMG, Fnatic, and LMQ.
I'm going to say Samsung Blue and OMG.
Oh, wow. She just put OMG right up there. Did you notice that Dada 7 didn't hit a single tidal wave?
That's okay. I believe.
That's okay.
Okay, so she's going to go Samsung Blue and OMG. Where are you going?
I'm going Samsung Blue as well. They're hungry for victory, and I hope they won't be cocky enough to lose other games, since that's the problem they have. But yeah, Samsung Blue that is, and then most likely LMQ actually.
Oh,
I would say LMQ.
The 2 pseudo-Chinese teams.
Mm.
Why do you think over Fnatic?
Well, they already lost 2 games, and it might be pretty hard because they won the game versus Samsung Blue, but Samsung Blue, they will play them again, and Samsung Blue will not let them take the win. They will just not let Fnatic win. They will prepare so much, like Fnatic prepared so much for Samsung Blue. So
do you think it's something innately about Fnatic's playstyle that opens them to this early aggression?
It's more like Samsung Blue got completely outpicked. They got baited into that, and then overall their style was so cocky. Like you could see that Dada, on mid lane he was constantly like teasing Pekka to charm him. He was like literally standing in front of the creeps and like, oh, hit me, hit me, hit me, you won't hit me, I will just jump away with my shadow. And then Pekka every time hit the charm, and that started a snowball that Pekka got some kills, and then he helped his team to carry on, and then Reckless from behind jumped in and carried the team on, and yeah,
I
it was just
reason,
being overcooked.
I think another reason Fnatic probably won't get through is how often do we really see Pekka show up that well these days? Like even in EU LCS,
But
we
isn't
barely
that
see
the
him play
myth?
that well, non-internationally, never mind internationally. So I don't really have much hope that they'll play at that standard consistently for the rest of the groups.
But isn't that the legend of Fnatic, that they always show up at Worlds? Isn't that what the casters tell us all the time?
But the other legend of Fnatic is that they always win the split, and they didn't win the split this time, so I think that their luck might be over.
Oh, okay. Shots fired. Okay, so Group D is going to be Njin White Shield, Alliance, Cloud9, and Kaboom. Who are your two to get out of this?
Now I'll just think about it again. I need a little space to think.
He constantly is just throwing you under the bus. He's just forcing you to go.
I'm a
ladies,
gentleman, you know.
ladies first.
Ladies first, of course.
Okay. Well, obviously, I'm going to go for Njin White Shield, Koreans. There's nothing else I need to say.
I think they go like this, though. Yeah.
Second, I'm going to go for Cloud9, because I think that in another Cloud9 versus Alliance game,
my two EU panelists aren't going to put out a EU team in either of the groups? What is this? I don't even think Alex and Nukeduck did it either.
I don't know, maybe we're just realists and we realize how bad the EU is compared to the rest of the scene internationally now. But
I didn't say it.
Wow.
I'm sorry. No, but really though, the reason that I'm saying this is because when I've been watching the EU teams compared to the rest of the teams, the rest of the regions, their playstyle seems so outdated. Just like it feels like they haven't adapted to what the rest of the world's adapted to and what the East have actually mastered.
I'm glad that you brought up the word adapt. Again, it was used yesterday, and I think Alex said it best, that EU's play style, because it's just so much slower pace, like you were talking about that controlled aggression as opposed to the raw aggression, the meta has shifted more into a team fight. You know, it's traditional laning, team fight over dragon, traditional laning, massive team fights everywhere, and I think EU is just a little bit slower to pick that up, whereas in China, Korea, they've already been doing this for so long.
Yeah,
Freeze?
Indeed. My will be Njin White Shield, of course, and then if the tournament wouldn't meant so much for Alliance, then I would say Alliance. But since Shuk is known for choking offline, then I had to say Cloud9. So I'll have the same picks. But yeah, like if Shuk would just show up, and he would not do the crazy plays where he just flashes into an enemy and then he dies for nothing, then Alliance would have a chance. But,
so there we have it. No European team is making it out of group stage. Yeah. That's unfortunate. But either way, huge thank you again. Of course, we have Freeze and Kikuz taking their time to come onto the panel. We do this every day after group stage. I think we have different panelists tomorrow. I don't have the schedule in front of me, but otherwise, for all of your League of Legends. Oh wait, never mind. You guys, shout outs first. Do you have anything that you would like to say, closing statements, before I go into the billboard?
Thanks for the interview. Thanks everyone watching, following League, supporting, stuff like that, and keep watching Worlds. That's mine.
Solid.
Yeah.
Respectable.
Thanks for inviting me on the show. Thanks for listening to me talk, even though I'm a girl.
2 girls, 1 stream. I can only imagine chat right now. No, it's okay.
2 girls.
But no, seriously, thank you guys for coming on. Of course, time out of your day, and again, we're cutting it a little long. All of your League of Legends, this is the billboard now, Vanna White, all of your League of Legends news, please check out on Gamers. Otherwise, thank you.